Hello, everybody. It is 1:31 on this beautiful Tuesday, and we are back with Sustain Your Holidays. Hi, I'm going to let everyone kind of get situated for a second, and today we are going to be joining Jess Grose. Hi, I'm so excited. Jess wrote this new book, Screaming on the Inside, which we're going to get into. So let me get Jess in here. And it is a wonderfully raw and wonderful book that I think all mothers and women and people and humans should be reading. Sorry, Jess, it's taking me a second. There she is. And we are going live with my co-founder of Town, Kelly Mickle. Hi, Kel.
Hi.
Hey, Jess.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you. What a day. I know that your book is coming out today. You must be super slammed and busy. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us on your debut of your new book, which we're really excited about, Screaming on the Inside.
I am so thrilled to be here, and I'm matching my book cover inadvertently.
How very mom influency of you.
It's true.
Can you guys hear and see me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So very excited to delve into your new book, Jess. I don't know if you want to give a little bit of an intro because you're a BFD in the writing and journalism world. I don't know if you want to give a quick intro.
Sure. My official job title is opinion writer at the New York Times. I have so many opinions, and I write a newsletter. I write a newsletter for the Times, and it focuses on the culture and politics and impact of American parenting. And I've been a journalist for almost 20 years, which is shocking to me that I have done anything for almost 20 years. And I have written focused really more on parenting in the past 10 years. My older daughter is also turning 10 this week, so it feels really just like a special Kismet week to have this book come out and have my baby be 10. So that's the brief bio.
Huge milestones.
Really.
And we love your opinions, by the way. So keep up with those opinions.
Thank you.
And then also here with Kelly Mickle, my co-founder of Town, who's a writer and journalist who has written about this issue. And I know that it's a topic that is very close to her heart as well.
Yes, Jen knows that I love to talk about this. Before we launched Town together, I was a health reporter for women's magazines, and this is a topic that's very close to my heart, and wrote a lot about sort of the postpartum period, how we sort of dote on new moms when they're pregnant, and then the second the baby pops out, we kind of forget about the moms, and I feel like that this is a topic that, we tend to say that we value mothers, but our actions speak otherwise. And so Screaming on the Inside is something that I think so many moms especially relate to. And so there could not be a more perfect title for this book, in my opinion. I know so many of us relate to this. And so I just thank you for writing it. I think it's a brilliant book. And I know so many moms who are really excited to read it and would just love to hear from you kind of the genesis of the book, which I think you started writing during the pandemic, right?
I did. So even though I started writing it during the pandemic, the germs of the book and the sparks of it really started when I was pregnant with my older daughter. I got really sick. I had hyperemesis, which is extreme morning sickness. And I got really, really depressed, which, tends to happen when you are not holding down any food at all for weeks at a time. And I had just started a new job. And I had to leave that job. And I just felt like the world's biggest failure. And I hadn't even had a baby yet. I was like, I can't even handle this. And there's no baby here yet. It was just a really scary, difficult time. And my workplace just didn't know what to do with me. No one was mean about it. They were just like, we don't have paid sick leave that will sustain you through this period. You've just started here. They just really didn't know what to do with me. And it was just so clear in that moment that the systems surrounding me in the United States could not support any kind of deviation from sort of perfect health and perfect working. There's a statistic that I have in the book that in Norway, where they have unlimited sick leave and, universal health care, the average amount of time that a pregnant person takes off from work during their pregnancy, and this is not a super sick pregnancy like I had, is 8 weeks. Just because they don't feel good that day, because it's hard to go on. And so just realizing that in other places, they don't make it quite so hard as we make it on American moms. So the ideas for the book were really starting to germinate then. And I did other things. I was an editor, of different places. I wrote about different things. I wrote about women's health. I wrote about grizzly bears, just all sorts of things over the intervening 10 years. And I started at the Times in 2018, and I was running a new parenting section. So obviously that was when I really started to think more deeply about American motherhood. I was editing lots of pieces about American motherhood. I started this newsletter for the Times in 2019. And then the pandemic really crystallized it for me. And I think it crystallized it for a lot of parents across the country, because when everything fell apart, all the systems, even the imperfect systems that weren't working great for a lot of people before, they were all gone. And who was left to pick up the pieces? Usually moms, disproportionately moms. And again, I don't want to say dads didn't do a lot, dads did a lot, but still moms did more. And so I started writing the proposal for the book in the summer of 2020, just out of sort of rage and fear and exhaustion, and just, there's that movie cliche, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. I just had that deep feeling. And I remembered this moment during the summer of 2020 where I was moving the laundry from the washer to the dryer. I was listening to a conference call on mute in my ears. I could hear my children in the background whining for food because it was lunchtime and I needed to make them lunch. And I was just like, I am pulled in 47 different directions, all in the same moment. And this is not sustainable, which is, how the subtitle of the book came about. It's just like that. Obviously, the pandemic made stuff much harder for moms, but I think a general feeling many of us feel in our day-to-day, even when things are not, as difficult as they were in 2020 or 2021, was just like, I have too many things to do. I have too many things pulling me in so many different directions, and I feel like I can't complete them all. I can't be who everybody needs me to be in every single moment. And so I spent 2 years reporting and writing the book. I talked to 100 moms of all different backgrounds. I talked to historians. I talked to sociologists. I talked to economists, just trying to figure out how did we get to this place, and also how do we get out of it? How do we make it better for ourselves and for our kids? Because I have 2 girls. They both tell me that they want to be moms someday, which is, warms my heart that it seems like a good thing to do. And I want it to be better for them by the time they become parents. So that is the long-winded explanation about where this book came from and what I'm hoping for it.
That is awesome. Well, first, I just want to applaud you on being a trailblazer. I know you also mentioned it a bit in your book with having to ask for, I think, paid time off or leave, and, being a trailblazer, not only in your work environment, but also speaking about this tough subject in a raw and real way, because motherhood isn't, I think often on the internet and social media, it's painted as this sort of like glamorous and pretty, thing, but there are many ways to go through motherhood, and often, more times than not, it is not very glamorous, as we all know, and it's not very pretty. We were joking earlier that half the time we were sitting, like in the bathroom and have multiple children coming in and out and wiping butts. And so I really applaud and appreciate you talking about your experience in as a real and raw and intimate way, because I think a lot of mothers need to hear this side of things and not just like oh, it's so good and so easy side. So I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that I'm hopeful with all of us talking more about it is it makes it easier for everyone to ask for help because nobody can do it on their own. And having the community around us, either of our friends, our family, our just community in any way.
Yeah.
And I mean, if the pandemic has made us realize anything, I hope it makes us realize that we need each other. We need to rely on everyone around us to help. So it's
Well, speaking of community, how did you get through the pandemic, and what was that experience like, as a mom and co-parent, and what was that like?
I mean, honestly, sometimes I don't, I would love to hear from both of you if you feel this way. I look at my husband, I'm like, did that just happen? Like, what just happened? Who are we? What is like, I mean, every day that my kids are in physical school, I like want to kiss the stone steps of the building. Like, I love you, public school. Thank you for
Yeah.
keeping my babies in your building. I love you, teachers. So, I mean, we moved in with my parents for part of it. That was amazing. I'm so lucky to have two parents who are still in good enough health to help us and who are so close to my kids. And that was, unexpectedly amazing. I was nervous about it just because it's like, I was in my late 30s at the time and I'm like, I have to live with my mom again. Like, how's this going to work out? But it was actually just like beautiful and generative. So that was like a big part of it. And, I somehow learned to function with children screaming downstairs for a long time. We traded off a lot. I don't know. What about you? How did you get through it?
Lots of alcohol. No.
Dissociating.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not happening. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, like, I felt like it was a touch and go situation, and I feel it was almost like having a bit of a pregnancy in a way where I felt really unmoored at first and like, well, what parenting books can I rely on right now? Because I've never been alone, or not that I was alone, but never been stuck under one roof with my children for so many hours on end, and then also being responsible to help educate them.
Yeah.
So it felt very overwhelming. And I agree with you as far as like kissing those teachers and being so grateful for, all of the wonderful educators out there who are so patient and kind and amazing. And I am very grateful for them. But yeah, I mean, it certainly was challenging. And for me, I had another layer, which I'd never lived with my husband before, which is like really odd because it sounds really crazy, but he was living and working in Vancouver, shooting a TV show there since I knew him.
Right.
So in addition, we also had to like figure out how to be married, which was a whole other interesting layer. So I was reading marriage books, like relationship books, like how do I do this? So yeah, so I mean, I feel like it was just a dance, and I don't know. Lots of wine, lots of friends, lots of distance, happy hours, and columns like yours to help get through it.
I remember I wrote a column like in the thick of it. It was very early days. That was called Missing the Partner You See 24/7. So it's like, and I described being with my husband as like co-workers in the most existentially depressing office, because it was like all we did was trade off educating and feeding our children and then working. And it was just every second of the day we were physically in the same space, but we hadn't, and you couldn't go anywhere. So it was like, how are we together all the time? And yet I feel like I don't get to talk to you. Like it was so, yeah, that was really, I remember that being really challenging. And again, it does, not to be Pollyannish about it, but it definitely makes me grateful for being like, oh, we can go to a restaurant and have a babysitter. Like just those things which seemed totally normal in 2019, I'm more grateful for now, I think.
Absolutely.
For sure.
What about you, Cal?
Yeah, no, I mean, we were stuck at home in that same cycle. I mean, we were different in that both my husband and I worked from home pre-pandemic. We're both freelancers. So in some ways, not a lot changed for us, except we then couldn't go anywhere and our children were stuck with us 24/7.
Yeah.
But I think I also just felt incredibly lucky that we still had that option to work from home. And I think in your book, you know, what struck me over and over again was just that lack of flexibility that so many mothers in this country have, is that, you know, like, obviously I could work from home and still take care of my children, but so many moms don't even have that option. So then what do? You know, they go back to work after having a baby like 2 weeks later, or they drop their kid off. But I don't know, it's just the position that so many moms are put in is unsustainable, as your title reads. And it's just strange to me that I don't know, that there, when the, at least the polls show that there is so much support for affordable childcare and paid family leave policies. Like, why do you think that this is such a unique American problem when, like, the statistics show that there is broad support for these policies? Like, why do you think that more isn't being done?
I mean, the sort of simple answer is that they cost money, and politicians never want to say, we're raising your taxes to pay for anything. Nobody wants to say that ever. And it is something that might, you know, either you have to shift money around, or these things are expensive. And let me just be clear, childcare should not be cheap. You don't want bargain basement childcare. No one wants that for any child in this country. Every child in this country deserves high quality care. Full stop, right? So the idea that it should be inexpensive is very strange to me. It's just like, oh, do you want the cheapest like tattoo like that's on your body permanently for the rest of your life? Like, no, this is like our children, our babies, so it's expensive. Like that is a huge barrier. No one wants to pay for it. So like, that's what it is. Other countries have prioritized care in a way that our country just seems over and over again really resistant to doing. And it's not just childcare. I mean, I just did a story about the sandwich generation, which are people who are caring for young children and also older family members, whether it's parents, aunts, uncles, whatever. Mm-hmm. As insufficient as the childcare system is, the elder care system might be worse. You know, there's so, and our, you know, older family members deserve good care as well. They deserve humane care. And so, you know, these are just things that our country, for whatever reason, and I think there's, you know, tons of historical and complicated reasons, but it sort of boils down to sort of an individualistic, every person for themselves attitude that I think, you know, there's good things about it in our country. I think people are very entrepreneurial. Like, I don't think anything is all good or all bad, but I do think it means that we don't put enough towards caretaking as we need to. And I think especially with paid leave, I mean, paid leave gets framed as a mother, like a mom issue, but it's an everybody issue. Everybody in their life is going to have to care for somebody else at some point. And that should not be something that breaks your bank, that financially destroys your family because you can't work for a period of time because you're caring for somebody else. So, you know, I do think over time we will get there. I try to be really hopeful about it because and I do believe this. I do, because I think as the generations are going by, people are having fewer kids because they realize like no one can afford to have kids. And that's, you know, I don't think most people think that that's good for society. And so I think at some point, you know, it's going to take time. These things, you know, whenever I feel disappointed or I feel like nothing's ever going to change, I just think about all the activists and all the parents and all the politicians who are working towards this change every day. And there's so many of them. There's so many people working towards it. And I do think part of it also is just generational. I mean, I think folks that are our age understand this in a way that people 30 years, 40 years older than us don't understand. And so as younger people, you know, age into controlling corporations and being more in government, I'm just hopeful that these things will be prioritized more.
I also think it was an important point you made in the book about that making paid leave about everyone then doesn't make women the lesser employee, because I do think that's like a really important point, that as long as it's about women getting that paid leave, then it's like we're less desirable as employees. And I think that's a really important thing to think about, that if everyone takes that and everyone gets that paid leave, then it's just everyone has it.
Exactly.
And it's not to make women this like liability, I guess, to hire. Which I think
Yep.
is right.
I love all of you have so many different stories throughout in different experiences of motherhood. I think I read that you interviewed more than 100 different women for your book.
Yeah, not everyone ended up in the book, but I did. I don't even know how many I talked to stories,
Wow.
but who sort of informed the direction and the things that I ended up highlighting. I mean, one thing that I think about a lot is the number of people I talked to who fully hid pregnancies from their employers during remote work, because they could, and because they thought they would be thought of differently if they were pregnant, and their employers had no idea.
Wow.
So it's both a sort of an indictment of the way that the American workplace treats mothers. If people are just fully being like, I'm not telling you I'm pregnant, we're resuming from the face up, you don't need to know. And also the lie that, being pregnant necessarily makes you worse at your job, because their employers had no idea. And that was just wild.
That is wild. That's insane. What do you think we can do to fix that or solve that? I mean, is it a policy thing? Do we come together as a community? Do we keep talking about it? Because I feel like I like hit my head against the wall sometimes about like, how do we I feel like we're so close and then we like take 10 steps back, and I'm like, banging my head against the wall. Like, what are in your minds do you have, like, or thoughts that you have about how we can fix it?
I mean, the good news is all of the above. We keep talking about it. We vote for candidates who talk about it and who say that they're going to, create action. We volunteer in our communities when it's possible. Like one thing that seems small that I do is I have a monthly donation to a diaper bank, to the National Diaper Bank Network, because it's like anything practical. I am a very practical person. So I'm like, what is the thing I can do that is the least work and will make the most impact? So every person has a different bandwidth for what they can do and how they can help. I often feel like I should be doing more because all I do is sit in my house and just write words, but like, that's my talent. I'm a writer, like that's how I do it. We all have sort of the different ways that we can help. I think another important thing is getting more men to talk about it. Because it's like the three of us are talking about it and we all feel it so deeply, and I think so many moms feel it so deeply and they're talking about it, but I don't think we're really going to have change until caregiving is seen as not just something that women do. And I think that it is changing slowly over time, but as long as it's just seen as something that like women care about, women's issues, like it makes it easy for it to be ignored and to be siloed, really, as like, oh, this is a separate thing. It's not like the important thing, like the economy. It's like, I mean, I just want to like throw something sometimes when I hear like, well, voters only care about the economy. And it's like, if you can't go to work because you don't have any childcare, that's the economy. Like that affects the economy. So the fact that it is all connected and it shouldn't be a separate like lady conversation, I think that to me is something I would really love to see more of. And again, it is incrementally changing, although my column tomorrow is going to depress you because it's I found this issue of Cosmopolitan from 1986 that has a special issue, like a special mini issue inside of it about working moms, and some things have changed, but a lot has not changed, and it's been almost 40 years, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? Cosmopolitan from 1986, like how have more things not changed? So again, I try to stay positive. I try to think of the things that incrementally change, even if the big picture things we're still chipping away at.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the fact that you have a parenting column in the New York Times to me is change, as like I feel like issues so many of the things that you write about now in the New York Times are things that only got published in women's magazines before. And I feel like the fact that you now have a platform in the New York Times is like, and not that we should be taking, you know, I know we need more than that, but I do find that that's progress, that some of those issues that only got press in like women's spaces are now getting like mainstream news platform spaces is encouraging to see. So,
and not
I really,
glossy.
yeah,
Like the raw, real
yes,
feel. Not like, hey, look, this is how you get a blowout before you have a baby. But like, hey, like it's fucking painful and hard and raw and like it's exhausting, and you really delve into it in that platform like New York Times. Yeah, you're right, Cal. Like it is real big change and
no,
very
and your columns start like I feel like national conversations around these parenting issues in a way that I don't feel like was happening before. So I feel like is a lot of progress.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying. I really am. But I mean, I really give so much credit to Katie Kingsbury, who runs the opinion section, and she's just been so supportive of me and is so also feels like these issues are kitchen table issues that everybody should be talking about. And so, again, I think just as our generation becomes leaders in companies and in society, I think that is going to go a long way. It's not going to happen overnight, but I also really just want to bust the myth. I still feel like conversations assume that like men don't want to spend more time with their children, and they totally do. It's like, yeah. I think almost in a way, I talk to a lot of dads who feel like they are in the position that moms have been in for a long time. And they feel pulled in a million directions. They also want to spend time with their kids. They also have to work. I see the commenters talking about, the difficulty is having kids with special needs, or, the additional, stresses of adopted kids, all of that. Like, mm-hmm. I think moms and dads are both now being pulled in 8 million directions. And while I don't think it's good that more people feel pulled in a million directions, I think that ultimately is what will get us to change. So I would love to, just watch that happen over the next couple decades.
I think one thing too that struck us in this book was some of the similarities between those unrealistic expectations about motherhood and parenting, and even some of the unrealistic expectations we find in the environmental space that we talk about with town and sort of being perfect about being green. A lot of times you feel like you can't do anything right, or you're afraid if you try to live more sustainably that you can't do it perfect enough, or you'll get judged for not doing it right. And there's so much of that in motherhood that you're never doing it right. You always feel like you're being judged, and you kind of get caught up in these, I guess they kind of call it the mommy wars, where you're always like, you didn't breastfeed, or you did breastfeed, or you went back to work, or you did go back to work. And just, you kind of get caught up in these like arguments between each other, rather than like focusing on the bigger structural problems, which are the root of all of it. Like, how do you think we, I don't know, get out of that? Like, where we're, instead of fighting each other, we focus on the bigger structural problems.
Well, I think the first thing to do is, if you are ever in a sort of online situation with social media and you're seeing something and it makes you feel bad about yourself, just unfollow. Just remove yourself from the situation. Those people don't know your life. They don't know your situation. They're not, they might just be sharing something about themselves, and it feels bad to you because you have I have all sorts of weird baggage from my difficult pregnancies, and I still feel shame and guilt around different things. And so, but I know myself well enough to say when I'm looking at something and being oh, that makes me feel bad, I'm just going to not look at that. So I think in our real day-to-day lives, just interpersonally, it's finding people and situations that affirm your values and make you feel seen and heard and supported, whether that's friends, especially during the past 2 or 3 years, I have a mom chat, and it is a lifeline. These people know me, they know my situation, they can give me good advice, they value me, and they're not trying to tear me down. So I think like just, being there for, interpersonally, the people who really know you and care you and understand your values, and the people who don't, you just don't need to listen to them. Like, you can close the Instagram, you can stop following them. You don't need them. I think in terms of kind of having the energy or making the space to look outward and do things for your community, I think the most important thing when you have young kids, like really young, my kids are 6 and almost 10, like it's much easier. Those first couple of years are triage. Just be kind to yourself and get through them. Like,
so true.
You are so tired. Don't then also beat yourself up because you're not doing X, Y, and Z extra thing. Like, you are just staying alive and you're keeping your kid alive. Yeah. But it's knowing that you don't have to do all the things all of the time. Yeah. Someday you'll have time. Someday you'll have space. And maybe you won't. Maybe your life is such that you won't have it. But like, you can, if today is not the day, that doesn't mean you have to beat yourself up about it. And I think that one of the reasons that we don't have things like, a working childcare system is because once parents are kind of through that period of needing childcare, they forget how hard it was. It's not that they don't care about it anymore. It's that it's not a priority for them in terms of their votes or their, things that they think about that need to change in society. And so what I hope a little bit through this book is that people who might be out of that immediate triage period of having really little kids will just remember to keep it top of mind. Will remember to make it a priority when they're, talking to their elected officials or deciding even what charities to give to, because there's so many places to give to parents struggling, especially in those early childhood years. So, it's just giving what you can when you can.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love everything that you said, and just kind of to go back and echo a little bit about like finding things that make you feel good. I think that's a really big topic, or, a big idea that especially young women, young moms really need to think about too. Like I'm no stranger to social media. Obviously we're on, this platform right now, which I am grateful for because it is bringing community together and we're connecting and having conversations that need to be had, but it also is like a very tough spot, especially with all of the glassiness. And I'm also like, I see the irony because half of my stuff is very glassy and I like struggle with it a lot, and half of it is like, fuck this is the reality of it. Because it's true, and like it's tough. And I hope anyone who's like watching this really understands that it all serves a purpose, and there's some of it is escapism and it's fun, and some of it is like ridiculous. But again, to echo what you're saying, like if it doesn't feel good, then unfollow and get rid of it, because it's not, half of the shit is not real. And the same goes for books. If there's like a self-help book that's going to help you along in your pregnancy, and you start reading it and you're like, this doesn't sit with me. Why is my friend who loves this book and these guidelines don't work for me? Like, it doesn't mean it's the Bible or whatever the fuck, it's not like the book. You can change your guidelines and your perspectives on motherhood, on pregnancy with each child, and it changes, and we evolve and we change, and motherhood has so many gray areas, as you write about. There are so many ways to be moms, so many ways to raise kids, so many ways to be pregnant, and there's absolutely no right way, and we should not be judging others. We should be accepting and having conversations like this, because we all do it so differently, and each child is very different, and each, as I said, each pregnancy, and as you write about.
Absolutely. And it's funny, it's like I joke, like in the book, I'm pointing out, the artifice of influencers, and at the same time, on like the first day of quarantine, when I was like in a total state because my parents both got COVID in March 2020, and I was like, are they gonna die? This is so scary. And of course, it was also my birthday, was like the first day of quarantine. I posted this like cute picture of my kids playing outside and like social distancing, and I was like, I was dying inside. Like, I do it, we all do it, right? So it's like, sure. I am fragile and, you know, a hypocrite like everybody else. And I try to at least point out when it's like, we all do it, right?
Yeah, of
So
course.
when in talking about it, I am never meaning to like point fingers or be like, don't, and anyone should post whatever they want, act however they want. It's like,
Yeah.
it's up to us to make sure that we are maintaining good boundaries about what we look at and what makes us feel good.
Yeah.
So, you know, I never.
You didn't come across like that you were
Yeah.
at all, you know, pointing anybody out at all. I didn't mean to like.
No. I was just using the example from the book of saying like, I do the exact same thing. Like I was like, oh yes, like talking about the artifice and then also just posting this like completely fake poster pic of me and my kids like being so happy when like I'm deeply miserable inside and not talking about it.
Oh no, or like I noticed with mine, like half the pictures I take, one kid's like rolling his eyes, one kid's like, you know, giving me a lewd gesture, you know, one kid's spitting their tongue out, whatever it is, and then like the I finally get one where there's like a half smile, and I'm like, everything's great, everywhere, look how happy we are.
Right.
I'm like the dog shitting on the carpet, you know. Like, it's just not sustainable at times. Sometimes you want to like print out and put out the good news. You know, you don't want to write bad news, but you also like, that's not every day. So anyways, not to get off.
I just wrote this piece for Vogue about how like, remember there's that prompt like 9 months ago about like everyone was showing their bump, their old pregnancy pictures. And I felt like I was so conflicted by that because I have almost no pictures of my first pregnancy because it was so difficult and I was so sick. And at the same time, I loved seeing my friends and with their cute little bumps. And like, even as I couldn't participate in it and it brought up complicated feelings for me, I still wanted to celebrate my friends in that moment of their lives, right? So I think it's also that we can hold all of these things as mothers. You know what I mean? Like we can remember our hard times and share them with our friends, but also still be really happy for them in their joyful moments. And I think that's sort of something special about it when we are honest with each other and when we do share. It leaves the door open to have both those good and bad feelings at the same time, if that makes sense.
Sure. You've shared like so many of those kind of bad and raw moments in this book. Are there any that you feel like have resonated the most with readers that you've noticed?
I think the part about like a couple things. Like obviously a lot of people have difficult pregnancies, and so just being honest about like, you know, sometimes you just are really, really sick, and it's gross too. You're like, yeah, I'm puking constantly. Like nobody wants to hear that. So anything where you're like honest about your bodies and the impact on pregnancy, I think that just like everyone wants to talk about it. It's hard to talk about. Some of the stuff about early motherhood. So I am just not a joiner. I had kids before all my friends. I was like, my friends were happy about my baby. So like they would hang out with me and I'm like, why do I have to make all new friends just because I have a baby? Like, I don't want to do that. Who are these people? What do we have in common? Like I was very like, I don't know. I'm not a joiner. And so I think people sort of that resonates with some people who, you know, maybe struggled with that early motherhood period and, you know, accepting that new identity as a mom and what that meant for who they were. I've been hearing that. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, of course, going back to work is always like just figuring out the sheer logistics of that puzzle. If you have to be in an office every day, which when I was pregnant with both my girls, I was in an office, and then obviously I left work for the first and was freelance after my older daughter was born. But I went back to work pretty quickly after my second child was born, and that was, you know, I just was so tired all the time. Like I just remember those days as being, you know, the falling asleep with the TV still on at like 8:30.
Oh, yeah. Earlier.
Earlier, just being like a complete zombie to the world. So, you know, I think the honesty about all of that just breeds more honesty and more sharing, which I love. And I could listen. I'm like a weirdo and I love birth stories. I could hear anyone talk about their birth story all day long. No matter what it was, I have no judgment. I want to hear it. I want to hear the good and the bad and the exciting and like what how your partner reacted and like were the doctors good to you or bad to you. Like I don't know why. I just love hearing those stories. I could hear them all day long.
I do too. There's something so magical about entering into the life, entering into the world. It's like, and everything that creates it is just so magical.
Exactly.
And every story is different. Every story is so different. I don't know.
They're all really different and they're all just like, they're ours, you know? I mean, I also think now that my kids are older, one thing, you know, I obviously went back and wrote a lot about that early motherhood period, but my kids are who they are. All that stuff, like it seemed to matter so much in the moment, and it obviously not to diminish its meaning at the time, but it's like it doesn't really have to do with who they've become. Like they're their own amazing little people, and so you know, I cannot believe I have a kid who is almost 10, and she is so just gives me the business every day of her damn life.
And it's so wonderful too. It's and they just are who they are no matter what. Like all you can do is just like, I'm here, and it's like what is it, not ping pong but pinball, you know, and you're just like, you hit the sides, I'm gonna be here to make sure, you know, the bumpers on like the bowling ball or the bowling lanes, whatever.
How old are your all your kids now?
My oldest is 10. He's pretty sweet. It's my 5-year-old daughter that gives me the business. She's the wild one. And then I have an almost 9-year-old boy as well.
Oh, sorry. Go on, Kelly.
No, I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. So.
Yeah.
10 just feels like impossibly grown up to me. I'm just like,
I know. The double digits, it's like real. And all of a sudden his school considers him middle school. And so there's a whole new like preteen thing happening and boyfriend girlfriend stuff, and then like that's a whole other mom thing where like some moms are cool with texting and cell phones and technology, and I'm like, get this the fuck away from you, like
oh god, yeah, I know.
That's also scary because I'm like, well, you got to learn, and I want to be there to protect you and help guide you, but like I don't know, like so again, like I can't judge, and I'm just it's so hard to know the right thing to do.
Well, one thing I've been finding challenging with an older child, and I would love to hear if you're feeling this too, it's like, it is just flashing back all of the difficulty, you know, all of the emotions I had in middle school. Because, you know, we're applying my older daughter to middle school now, and I'm just like, I'm having this like intense reaction remembering what it was like. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe you're living through that. Like that, I'm finding myself having to like take a beat because I'm like, I can't get this involved in your drama.
Well, I'm almost grateful that my oldest is a boy, because I feel like I'm probably overdoing it with like the manners and like no means no and kindness and like all the other things that I wish were taught to the boys, you know, that we grew up with. And so I probably overdo it in that way, but it certainly is anxiety inducing. Like I hated middle school with a passion. So it's
now
like
we have to relive it.
We have to redo it. Yeah.
Exactly. But you can never overdo that. Like boys learning consent is so important. Like if I had boys, I would absolutely tell them about it every day of their lives.
Your sister said no. No means no. No.
Yeah. No, my little one is more like they're very stereotypical firstborn, secondborn personalities. The older one is very loves rules, like is very straight and narrow, and the little one is like an agent of chaos. And I'm just like, like the older one is very sarcastic, but the little one, I'm like, you're gonna be trouble. You are maybe our trouble.
That is awesome. I love it. Well, gosh, I feel like we just got started and like we've been talking for 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
We're so honored and so grateful. I know that this is such a busy day for you. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
Let me just look at my questions, because I know that there's probably one more that we want to ask. I know. Because we're going to bring it back to town. And we talked about sustainability and holidays, since this is the holidays, which can be wonderful, but they're also a lot. So what do you do during the holidays to sustain yourself, and what sustains you?
Well,
Oh no, do we lose volume?
No, wait.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, can now. Yeah.
We're not, one thing is this holiday, we are really going to rest. We are not traveling. We are going to take a short trip upstate, but only driving. We're not flying anywhere. We are going to spend time with family. And to me, like, just that, like, logging off, being present with each other, resting. I'm going to nap. I take so many naps. I'm just like, I'm taking a few days off work. I will not look at my email. And then just sort of in terms of tradition, we have a menorah. That is one of the few things that my great grandmother took from Austria. So my maternal grandparents are Holocaust survivors. And so, the people who were able to leave left with very little in the late 30s. Yeah. And so I have the menorah that my great grandmother and my grandmother took with them. And my girls know about it. They know why we have it. They know where it comes from. It's very special to them already, which just like touches me so deeply. And so, we're not super religious, but that is a ritual that we do religiously every year, and it's really special. And so we have the tree, which we already decorated, and we're just like, I'm really into those holiday rituals. Less so the decorating, but like the active, having special meals, like lighting the candles, all of that stuff is just like, I look forward to it every year. And then, it's always, I wrote a piece a few years ago called how to keep your kid from being a gift monster over the holidays, because when you have an interfaith family like ours, it's just wild. December, it's just like they expect to get a gift every day, and I am like, are you kidding me? Like, I know we have both, but still, like, it's too much. You guys need to not be greedy about this. And so we really do try to teach them, like, you're very lucky, you are very privileged, you should not get all of the gifts in the world. You need to learn how to give back. We always make sure that they are giving back over the holidays as well, and that they know that, and that we do that as a family. So
wonderful.
That's amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I will point out that this does make a wonderful holiday gift.
Yes.
For Hanukkah, for Christmas, for Kwanzaa, for whatever, for a birthday, please go out and run and buy Screaming on the Inside by Jessica Grose. Thank you so much for being here. We are so honored.
Yes, I am thrilled to be here, and thank you again so much. And have a great holiday, both of you.
You too. I hope you get lots of naps.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. If I could figure out how to get out. Okay.